Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra. Canadians returned Liberal Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to power in a hotly contested election against a rookie Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, but he failed to gain an absolute majority. Trudeau called the snap election last month, hoping to parlay a smooth COVID-19 vaccine rollout among the best in the world into a new mandate to steer the nation's pandemic exit and pass his agenda without opposition support. Well, he's got a lot of problems, even though he's come back for a third term. In fact, only the 8th Prime Minister of Canada to do so. But what concerns India is the people who have been backing Mr. Justin Trudeau and his hot and cold attitude towards vaccine diplomacy, specifically when it comes to India and our benign approach to Justin Trudeau. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining me on the platform is Ambassador Deepak Vohra, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, former diplomat. Also with us is Kuldeep Singh Shekhawat, President, Overseas Friends of BJP, United Kingdom, anti-Khalistan voice. Thank you, sir, for joining us all the way from London. Sumit Peer, political commentator, is also here with us. Professor Madhav Nalapad, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, should also be joining us momentarily. Ambassador Vohra, coming to you first, though. Trudeau is back. Trudeau 3.0 is back. You know, his tenure is going to be replete with not only challenges, but also admonishment for the kind of hot and cold and lack of leadership which was displayed the last time he was around as the leader of Canada, and specifically his support and his patronage to certain Khalistani elements, to anti-India elements, is also a concern for our country. And let's not forget, the economy, which has been flushed down the drain, is going to be a big concern for him, because Canada, as limited as it may be in its economy, is bundling and bungling under a lot of pressure.
Thank you very much, Simon. It's always a pleasure to be with you on the show, and I'm delighted to see Mr. Shekhawat and Mr. Sumit Peer. So this is going to be a very good discussion, as always on NewsX. If Justin Trudeau is again going to be Canada's Prime Minister, I don't know whether to congratulate him or to feel sorry for his country. The main election issues, as you rightly pointed out, were several, but they included climate change, affordable housing, and economic recovery. Lurking in the background, sir, were discoveries of Indigenous children's bodies of former residential schools for First Nation children. There is a Kawases First Nation. They announced that they had found the remains of 751 people. This is all in, I'm talking of 2021, at a former Indian residential school. The residential school system in Canada was a tool of cultural genocide, worked explicitly through the forced removal of children and young people from their families. Some people say up to 150,000 of these Indigenous children perished. It was an attempt to civilize them. So I think the first advice I'll give to Shri Trudeau is stop talking about human rights. Second, you might recall, sir, that 6 months ago, after making unwarranted comments on the farmers' protests in India, he begged the Indian Prime Minister for Made in India vaccines. And our leader graciously responded that we shall see what we can do. You know, sir, my own feeling, and I've been to that country several times, Canada is a funny nation. Suffers from a big country, small population, oversized ambition complex. Oh, it sits at the G7 high table of rich democratic nations, even though it should not be there. Very eager to make its mark in every international issue. Nobody takes Canada seriously. And reflecting on that country's foreign policy, I'm reminded of Joseph Stalin's question to Winston Churchill at the 1944 Moscow conference. Churchill is supposed to have said, we went to war when Germany occupied Catholic Poland because the Pope would get very angry if we didn't. And then Stalin interrupted him to say, well, how many divisions does the Roman Pope have? Now, this is the kind of thing that we are seeing. Canada is overshadowed by its powerful southern neighbor. So when you say America, everybody thinks of USA. Nobody talks of Canada. Its own unity is fragile, evident from the almost successful Quebec independence referendum. I think it was 25 years ago. Finally, I'd just like to say that this guy is a Janus-faced hypocrite on the basis of on the basic support for peaceful protest itself. You remember that he had talked all about the farmers, etc. Nobody asked him to. I mean, methinks the lady does protest too much, as Shakespeare said in Hamlet. He talked about, we will be there to defend the rights of peaceful protest, he told the Indian farmers. And my driver innocently asked, sir, what if the Canadian army decides to invade India? When will we bury all of them? So this is the kind of thing. This guy had better understand that this is his last chance to make amends, because his best friend in Asia, sir, shared values, a large diaspora of 2 million people, maybe many Khalistanis also, his best friend in Asia is not the country he used to go chasing called China, who have humiliated and insulted him. It's a country called India. Canada, wake up. Your friend, your best friend, your best bet in Asia is India.
Absolutely. Sumit Peer, and when is Justin Trudeau going to realize that? You know, he's often kept mum, he's often kept quiet, even when India has diplomatically, very nicely, very benignly told Justin Trudeau that you should just stay where you are. Do not bother about the farm agitation. Do not worry about you know, how we change our laws, when we change our laws, what states get converted into union territories. Figure out the people who are trying to foment trouble in India while sitting right next to you, Justin Trudeau.
I think, Vineet, the most important point here is, as long as, I don't know what is the current, what is the current numbers, how do they look at this point of time. If you are still depending on a Jasmeet Singh for support and to survive, you will see Trudeau exactly taking the same line. All the Khalistanis live in Canada. He goes and supports them blatantly. He comes and intervenes in our farm laws. And when they were building roads, when the locals kind of objected, he says, do not test the patience of Canada, we'll remove you by force. But when, and nobody removed any farmer by force in India as on date, but he wants to intervene in the internal affairs of India because his buddy, Pro-Khalistani Jasmeet Singh, asked him to do. I asked Mr. Justin Trudeau, if you are again becoming a Kathputli, a puppet of this Jasmeet Singh, then what difference does it make? I mean, on the one hand, you come and say, I want to support the farmers of India, when this is none of your business. And on the second hand, you want, I want Indian-made vaccines. We are suffering because we don't have Indian-made vaccines. You have such a small population. Your biggest diaspora is Indian, and still, because of your, what you call personal electoral gains, you side with Khalistanis. You sing the tone of ISI. And what happens in your Canada? Where was Karima Baloch murdered? Who murdered Karima Baloch? It was ISI in Canada. When it comes to safety and security, it is the playground of ISI. You are not bothered. When all these nefarious characters act against India, you are not bothered. And when your coalition partner Jasmeet Singh asks you, you start doing Bharatnatyam as per his tunes. I mean, if this is what the Canadian Prime Minister is all about, and this is what you call victory, I'm sorry, you would have better lost. Live with dignity, serve with dignity, and your diplomacy and your foreign policy cannot be dictated by pro-Khalistanis. If you have to go and toe the same line of pro-Khalistanis, you are no different. And Vineet, let me tell you, by doing this, you will never get a majority in Canada, because you lose your face when your own diaspora looks into it and say, hey, what is your business in Indian farmers? Why are you supporting these Khalistani elements when India is the country who is shipping vaccines to you, and Indian diaspora is doing great job here? They are building the Canada. They are the people who are contributing to the GDP. Why are you interfering in the internal affairs of India? What is your business, man? Nothing at all. But I am Justin Trudeau. I am depending on Jasmeet Singh. Jo Jasmeet Paji कहना जी, ऐसी जो वही करना है. I am only waiting, and I am just waiting when he will start speaking to Punjabi, say Ji Paji, when Jasmeet Singh Ji Paji. If that is the diplomacy, that is what we are looking forward to, nothing will change. But Vineet, by doing these gimmicks and tactics and these semantics, you deplete yourself in the global stage. India is a B4 country, you like it or not. We are in the top 4 countries in the world, you like it or not. There is no way a country of your size stature can mess around with us.
Okay.
You be in your place, we be in our place. As simple as that.
Okay, Professor Nalapat, Justin Trudeau is back as the Prime Minister of Canada, and so is his, charade of neoliberalism and, extra vivid tolerism as well.
Well, as is correctly being said, the way the children of the native Canadian community, these are the real people who are the First Nation of Canada, and the way they have been treated shows very clearly that Mr. Trudeau speaks a lot more than what he really believes in. The fact is that Justin Trudeau is interested in one thing, and that is Justin Trudeau. He has always been out to get popular support, and the problem is he is seeking popular support by pandering to the small groups of people, some of whom have ideologies that are incompatible with democracy. And one of that is a small group that wants to promote this separatism in India, and another group that wants to promote extremism in the Middle East. So this is the problem with Justin Trudeau, and that is why, very frankly, Canada.
Okay, we are losing Professor Madhav Nalapat. There seems to be a network issue. Professor Nalapat, there seems to be a problem with your connection.
But is Justin Trudeau by the G7 or the G20?
Okay, Mr. Shekhawat, you heard the ambassador. You know, Canada sits at the high table of G7, and the kind of responsibility a G7 nation is supposed to portray is absolutely missing from the Canadian Prime Minister. What does this mean, for the Indo-Canadian relationship, which have already been strained due to a non-action or a non-active response by the Canadian government to a number of agendas which have been red flagged, by proper diplomatic channels to Canada?
Thank you, Vineet. Let us go to the scenario. The scenario is very simple at this moment of time, that Justin Trudeau tried his best to get majority, so that he could run the government on his will and wish. Failed. He did this snap elections only in thinking that, yeah, I won't be requiring any more support from Jasmeet Bharat. Unfortunately, situation is bad. He has got 158 seats, 13 sort of majority. Now what he has to do is again ask for support. And there are only two parties who can support. One is Quebecers and one is Mr. Bharat from NDP. Now, Quebecers are very, very difficult people to deal with. So he has no choice left. He has to deal with Mr. Bharat. So Jasmeet Bharat with his NDP party has got 25 seats and he requires 13 for majority. So we are on square one as far as Canadian relations with India are concerned. He has no choice but to depend on a guy who is supporting Khalistan movement, who is supporting Khalistani propaganda, he is supporting ISI. So we are in trouble. Indian relations with Canada is going to be the same, because this guy has no choice. He cannot work without Jasmeet Singh Bharat. That's the problem. Now, if he tries to do something which is not with Mr. Bharat, then he has got another issue. People in Quebec, the law in Quebec are far more difficult and different for anybody living in. They don't have even religious tolerance. They don't allow people to wear their religious symbols in their offices. So it's far more right party to deal with. So Justin Trudeau tried his best this time round that, okay, let's try and get some votes and get the majority. He has failed, and because of his failure, he is in trouble. And he stands at the same place. I was just listening to Jasmeet Bharat's victory, lecture, or you can say he spoke to his party man. And he said, oh, I'm happy that we have gained ground in the country and we are doing fine and we'll stand for you. Only discussion he was talking about, only matter he was talking about was health. He did not mention anything else in this entire, I think, 25-minute long interview, and he only spoke about one thing, that we will stand with you because health services are in bad shape. He did not mention anything else, and then congratulated the Prime Minister that he is back. That's it. That was his whole lecture. So I don't know what they are looking at, but as far as we are concerned, as far as India is concerned, it's very, very clear that we stand in the same boat, exactly at the same place where we were before the elections. So that's where we are really.
Absolutely. Ambassador Vohra, where do you stand on India's vaccine diplomacy when it comes to Canada? Obviously, the buck stopped with India when Justin Trudeau needed those vaccines after criticizing us, after criticizing what happened on the 26th of January and the farmer agitation. He did come to India only for vaccines, and there is a possibility that this is going to happen in the future as well. What should be our stance? Should we be as diplomatic as he has been in his criticism and his extension of an olive branch?
Your question, I see the sarcasm. Should we be as diplomatic as he has been? Brilliantly put. You're obviously a foreign service kid. Yeah, no, we should not descend to their ridiculous level. By the way, on the internet recently, Mr. Shekhawat, I saw an interesting comment by a person who called himself Maverick Garad. He wrote that farmer protests also happen in France, Denmark, South Korea, etc. But Trudeau doesn't comment on those. It shows that he cares only about votes, not about relations with countries. And also, I'm not sure that Canadians have forgotten that it was Khalistani terrorists who blew up that plane. Was it June 1985? Air India's flight that resulted in the deaths of over 300 people, a majority of them Canadian citizens. Trudeau almost destroyed his relationship with the United States when he was caught on camera mocking Donald Trump, when the two countries imposed reciprocal tariffs and so on. His relationship with Russia is in deep freeze. China hates him. China's Consul General, I think in Rio, recently tweeted that, and he called Trudeau boy, and he said, you are the running dog of the United States, because Trudeau had joined Western nations in sanctioning certain Chinese officials. So of all the fellows, your relationship with the US is bad, with China is bad, with Russia is bad. The UK doesn't care very much about you. The French don't like you at all. Who does that leave amongst the great powers? That leaves only India. So it's not our style to be abusive in diplomacy. It's the Chinese style. Their behavior is atrocious. They have this racket called wolf warriors. Although the wolf is not a very brave animal. It goes around hunting in packs. For us, the national animal is the tiger that hunts alone. So I just wanted to make it very clear that we are not going to respond to him. It's not tit for tat with us. Well, we will deal with the guys, we deal with everybody else as somebody who is being compelled by domestic pressures to do and say what he is doing. But otherwise, we will deal with him as we would with any other country. He craves recognition. He wants Canada to be taken seriously. His problem is, apart from the 2 million Indian diaspora, and if you go to a village in Punjab, and Shekhawat Sahib, this is very interesting, Mr. Peer. I travel sometimes in the Doaba region, the two-river area of Punjab, and there are a number of homes which have the water tank is shaped like an aircraft with Canada written on it. So that basically means that we have a fellow who lives not in Canada, but in Canada. And so they have a certain respectability in the village. So as long as they are going there, it doesn't really bother us. We will deal with them as we deal with any other country, which has a leader whose intellectual level is nothing that I would boast about. Canada has to wake up and understand, look, India is standing here like a brick facing China. India is a member of the Quad. India is going to be attending these various meetings this month. When the Prime Minister goes there, it's the G20, it's going to be the Quad, it's going to be bilateral American businessmen, etc.
This week rather. This week, exactly.
Yeah. This month, this week. Yeah. And it's obviously India is the flavor of the month. This guy better wake up, sir. I hope he doesn't make the mistakes he made in his previous thing. Wearing a kurta and dancing the bhangra, etc. with his lovely wife and his kids. It might impress his constituents in Canada. It doesn't impress India at all. May I just say to this 50-year-old, the Chinese called him boy. So if I use the same term, I'd say, Mr. 50-year-old boy, grow up, please.
All right. Well, Sumit, that also brings me to my next question. This non-gravitas that has been displayed by Justin Trudeau when it comes to concerns that India has flashed, is that a cause of worry? Because you have a man leading a country such as Canada who doesn't take the problems of a country like India very seriously.
See, Vineet, it's not important what he thinks, believes, assumes, presumes, or hallucinates about. India is a superpower. India is the number 5 by GDP, number 3 by PPP, the third biggest military power in the world. You like it or not, we have much more foreign exchange reserves than Canada. In fact, he has to worry about his population. If his Pakistani immigration minister stops getting, Pakistanis from all across the globe into Canada, his population is a negative. So India is where it is. We are where we are. It is for people like Canada to really think, bother, and work hard to be friends with us. We don't need him. For what do we need him except for 2 million diaspora? What is the relevance of India? What is the relevance of Canada in your and my life? Where does it matter? What do we import from India? What do we import from Canada? By kaun si cheez ki load hai? Ki main Punjabi mein das raha hai. We don't need Canada for anything. They need us. When it comes to vaccine, we need you. And when it comes to human capital, the intelligent human capital, you again need India. You can get Jihadis, Wahhabis and Salafis from Pakistan. But when you look at the people who can make a mark like Sundar Pichai and Nadella, they have to come from India. I mean, this is what Justin Trudeau has realized. And as long as he's on those clutches of Jasmeet Singh, his political future is destined to be doomed. And you will make a joker of yourself in the world stage because your diplomacy cannot be wishy-washy. You have to be on the side of the Indian government. You have to be on the side of India. Whatever your domestic compulsions are, keep them aside. But do not get your foreign policy to be influenced by your domestic compulsions. As a leader, if your foreign policy is influenced by your domestic political compulsions, what is the message you are giving to the world? And you want Canada to be seen as a big brother or a big power in the world. Well, unfortunately, you are not. But again, when you do these stupid mistakes, you blatantly expose yourself. India is something which is India. I mean, you like it or not, we are what we are. And you are what you are. What Vohra Sahab ne bhi bola na, Jazz and Canada. That's what Canada, sorry.
Okay, all right. What we're going to do is we're also going to take concluding comments from Professor Nalapat and Mr. Shekhawat, and then we're going to wrap up. Professor Nalapat, coming to you first.
Well, I simply want to say that I don't think Justin Trudeau can do much damage for the simple reason that some of his party people and some of his newfound allies are in fact assisting terror from Pakistan, and in fact some of them are also assisting China, including in some activities against the United States. I think it's important for the Quad countries to go into a full recce about all these activities and identify those who are responsible. And I can assure you that Justin Trudeau, the Canadian people, will not stand for any individual in Canada, least of all a leader who will support terror in some form or the other, or who will support fighting on behalf of Communist China against the United States.
All right, Mr. Shekhawat, half a minute to you, sir, and then we close.
Yes. We refer to him as Jasmeet Trudeau.
Mr. Jasmeet Trudeau, in fact. What they should do in the first place is to have good relations with India. They should first of all rein in all the Khalistanis. And before that, to control them, they need to control the ISI. They need to have some sort of control with Pakistani immigrants and the ISI operatives in that country. If that is done, then yeah, things will improve 100% in Canada and relations with India will improve. But till such time, Trudeau is in trouble. I can guarantee you that.
All right. Well, you've summed it up and I don't need to top that. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this wonderful conversation.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.